Today, I'm talking to Ian Craig. He's an experienced exercise physiologist, a nutritional therapist, endurance coach, editor of Functional Sports Nutrition magazine, and also the founder of the Center for Integrative Sports Nutrition. And what I'm picking his brain on today is muscle mass. How do we build it? How do we prevent it from being broken down? And also, how much does an individual's overall health impact muscle growth? So, Ian, this year I turned 33, and I genuinely felt that, even though I'm doing more or less the same type of exercise, I'm eating more or less the same, that it has become more difficult to maintain muscle mass. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who can relate with that as they age, getting to their 40s, 50s, 60s. I guess it gets even worse. So it is quite obvious, and we know that as we age, our bodies are going to change. But this is a thing. We know that as we age, it gets more and more difficult to build and maintain muscle. But there's also other reasons why we lose muscle, why we break down our valuable muscle. For example, when we're losing weight, or when we're even training too hard, exercising too hard. So please tell us more about this, and maybe touch on how this can be prevented. What strategies, nutrition exercise strategies, can we put in place to help us to build and to maintain our muscle?
Okay, so with the age aspects, yes, there's this pretty graph that you can see in past the age of 30, which you've just fairly recently passed. Then it's diminishing returns as you go. But you can also build in different graph pictures so that you can buck the trend. But what's for sure is that you have to be more and more tuned into what works for your body as you get older. When you're young, you can get away with a lot, very inefficient training, poor eating patterns, and still build the muscle. But as you get older, you need to actually get better and better. So the obvious one from a nutritional perspective is eating enough. And there's a phrase now in sports nutrition, fuel for the work required. And that's, I think, quite a key component. And regularly enough as well. So especially around the exercise, we need to make sure we're eating. So a lot of South Africans train in the morning. That means a lot are fasted training. And that can be a problem for building muscle because you're immediately into a more catabolic state. So exercise is catabolic anyway, but if you're doing it unfueled, it's more catabolic, meaning that you're relying on more stress hormones to actually do the exercise. Just even something like a banana before your exercise can be helpful, or a diluted fruit juice during it. But then post-exercise, we need to get onto the sports nutrition recovery strategies. And protein is key for signaling that muscle protein synthesis or building. So we need enough protein post-exercise. But more important than that, we need enough protein during the day. And as we get older, it has been shown by research, we need more protein than a younger person to meet the same muscle protein synthesis rates. But I feel that's highly individual, your particular needs. We also need to train very wisely in terms of good work-rest ratios. So not just train, and then scurry around like a mad person the rest of the day. So stress management comes in there as well. So basically, what are anabolic activities? What are catabolic activities? And in a nutshell, anything that is expending a decent amount of energy, including our training, and including running around, including stress at work, stress at home, they're all catabolic. Anabolic is the action that good training can have, but you need to be in a rest kind of recuperation phase to make the most of it. And obviously sleep comes into that. And another way of calling it is yin-yang balance. or sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight and flight versus relax and repair. We need to have those two things in balance in order to flip into an anabolic recovery and muscle growth state.
Absolutely. So, I always find it when I chat to you, I remember a previous time you said that when you worked in South Africa, when you lived in South Africa, you often saw that the athletes and even just your recreational athletes in South Africa, they tend to think that more is more, right? Around exercise. And the more we train, the stronger I will become, the better I will do in my endurance or races or whatever, endurance events or races that I participate in. But yeah, you're saying that this is not necessarily the case, right? So more is not necessarily more.
Yeah, correct. South Africans invented this phrase, push through.
Yeah.
And a funny story, but I had a South African student living in London. And when I hosted a course in London, we had him in the heat chamber. And after 20 minutes, his rectal temperature built up to a high level, and the technician was close to pulling him out. And he said, no, I'm going to push through. I'm killing myself laughing. So yes, the pushing through is into a catabolic state, guys. So if you're talking about specifically muscle growth, the bodybuilders know best, and they will mostly do an exercise session, very intense, but within about a 45-minute period to limit the cortisol or stress hormone peak. And then they'll go straight into recuperation strategies. And that's key. But with the era we're in now, we've got HIIT sessions. We've got, what was it, Sweat 1000 I came across in South Africa. I came across CrossFit growing and evolving in South Africa. And these are incredibly popular in South Africa because of the push through. More is better, harder is better. But in terms of retaining your muscle and potentially building your muscle, we need to come back to old-fashioned weight training. And that's really old principles of training methodology, which is train hard, but recover even harder, or recover even more strategically. So within the training session, you need good recoveries between these hard, let's call them hits. But then afterwards, we need to be thinking about our day as well, as I've said before.
Yeah. So with recovery, time off, I guess, is very important, but also, like we just started discussing, the way we eat, right? So on nutrition as well. And you touched on protein. So just to get back to that, so we need to increase our protein intake as we age. Does the protein type and the quality matter? And you mentioned a quick word on the distribution as well. So yes, protein, having a good source of protein just after our session, but actually the distribution throughout the day. So making sure that you're having enough, even at breakfast, and snacks in between as well. So maybe you can just touch on the type and the quality of the protein, and also the timing.
Yeah, the timing's the first importance. My colleague Simone is a real expert in this. So she's got some really nice graphs showing the average high protein spike at dinner time, but then we're eating, cereal and sandwiches the rest of the day. So we need to actually try and get better protein intake in breakfast, maybe bring in some more egg breakfast. Or even like Asian style, I really like kind of like eggs and rice bowls, like Buddha bowls and things like that. And then lunch, treat it more like dinner, and then reduce your dinner a little bit. Let's not braai and eat half a cow at dinner time. Let's actually have a moderate amount and then distribute through the day. And if you're really pushing hard training wise, then the protein powders might come in. Obviously, you get the vegetarian and vegan sources like nuts, seeds, legumes. They're all really important. Bit harder to turn into muscle stimulation, but genetically, some people can do that. So from an aging perspective, yes, in theory, we need to eat more protein, but that can get people into an imbalanced, physiology, put gut strain on if you're doing that without actually thinking about it. So it's really important just to keep moderation in mind and focus more on health as you get older.
Exactly.
So there's something called the gut muscle axis. And it's obvious that we are only an aspect of what we can absorb, what we can digest, what we can absorb. But also there's newer research now connecting our gut microbiome, the healthy versus unhealthy bacteria, with the state of our muscle and muscle mass and muscle integrity. So if we're eating tons of meat because we feel we're getting older and we're worried about losing muscle, and we create this dysbiotic situation in our gut, it's not going to be very helpful for our muscle long term and our health in general. So getting that balance is really, really key. Getting enough vegetable fiber in there, because our fiber essentially is our prebiotic food for our good gut. And then what else? Recovery, you asked about. Yeah, your sleep is fundamental, but then quality of sleep, and then what I call active recuperation rather than just recovery. So you can bring in things like massage, you can do your foam rolling, you can do some breathing, meditation, you can get a little bit of yoga in there to create that yin-yang balance, okay? Because we're all stuck in yang, which is the doing. We need to be more being and peaceful and relax and, slow down the system.
Yeah, absolutely. So just coming back to that gut muscle axis that you just touched on, so it makes a lot of sense to me that if our digestive systems are not working as it should, then we won't be able to absorb all the lovely nutrients and all the extra protein that we're having, right? Like you said. So we really need to take that in consideration. And we know that the gut is really at the core of our overall health. We know there's a gut-brain relationship. There's a link to the immune system. Most of our immune system is located in the gut. So if we don't take care of our gut, the rest of the system is going to be influenced. So I think that's really something that we need to consider here as well. And I don't think that everyone necessarily takes that into consideration, that we need to take the whole system into account when we're thinking of growing muscle, right? And unfortunately, I've met so many people who are building muscle at the expense of their health. Like you also said, we're in yang all the time, or we're just pushing through, or we're using artificial substances to make to help grow our muscle. But unfortunately, the health of the whole system in the long run is going to impact muscle growth, and we need to consider that as well. So yes, one of the areas is the gut muscle axis, where if there's inflammation in the gut, I guess it's also going to escape into the muscle, or not necessarily. Is it going to impact the system in that way?
If there's inflammation in the gut, there can be inflammation anywhere in the system. And we know that through our understanding of autoimmune disease. And autoimmunity is like on a massive rampage, high. I saw a lot of it in Johannesburg. And of course, that's a very stress-oriented city. So stress is a big, big feeder of imbalance. And any imbalance will curtail your attempts to do whatever you're trying to do athletically. And that's the catch-22 in all of this. You need to look after yourself. And as you said, as you're getting older, if you're trying too hard, and if we're trying really hard to build muscle, but really focused in without actually consideration of the whole body, then we're going to be in a catch-22. We'll end up putting our health out of balance. We'll get into a catabolic state, because pretty much all ill health is catabolic. Well, all ill health is catabolic in some nature. Okay, so that inflammation you talked about, Zena, gut can mirror anywhere. So yes, you'll probably feel it in your joints and or your muscles and or your brain, your concentration and your focus. And although we tend to separate those out, like I want to grow my guns, that bicep is not, it's within the same body as your brain and your gut and your liver and your kidneys and, you know, everything else. So yeah, if you feel at ease, if you feel healthy, you've got a better chance of growing, but growing in a healthy way. We all look at pictures and, you know, it's the healthy looking muscular guys and girls that we really want to be as we get older, not the steroid filled guys that are just pumped this year but look fat next year.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think things like, you know, we need to, every aspect of the muscle system needs to be protected as well. So it's not just the protein, the bicep, but also the connective tissue, the collagen, right? It's like glue that holds all of the musculoskeletal system together. So these are also things that we need to look after, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the collagen is heavily affected by inflammation. So it's a big key part of the recovery, eating in a way to support our collagen, which is amino acids, which is a foundation of protein. Also, things like vitamin C is important for collagen. So, you know, again, don't just focus on the protein. Think about, well, vegetables and fruit bring in vitamin C. So that's one little example where you need to think a wee bit wider.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, if we're thinking, just going back to the gut for one moment, so the gut, if there's inflammation in the gut, like you said, it could impact the whole system, or any area of the body. But I'm also thinking, you know, of the other way around. So, like you said, overtraining and under recovering can also lead to poor gut health, right? So that could also lead to dysbiosis, or an imbalance in the gut bacteria, and even increased intestinal permeability, right? And that's actually something that's quite common amongst athletes, that they do have gut-related issues. And I'm always a bit confused there, because it might be a chicken egg situation. We're not sure which one was first. Did they have gut issues first and that impacted the muscle, or did they overtrain and that impacted their gut? So I guess it's a bit of a parallel journey that could be taking place there, right?
Yeah, either or and both. So there's individual susceptibility based on genetics, based on how we're eating, based on stress. The gut-brain stress, gut axis is really key. But yeah, I mean, if you then put pressure on, the exercise is a type of stress. It's a physiological stress. It's a physical stress. So then it's an additive stress load, because physiologically it's pushing up your stress hormones for that time period. We need to do that in order to adapt. But if we overdo it with the motto more is better, then that's when we get unstuck. And yeah, South Africans tend to be prone to that. Even the good, so-called good coaches have a quantity aspect or quantity ethos. We need to tune into our own body and say, well, how much is enough and how much is too much? How do I feel? My training feedback mechanisms when I coach are based around feeling. It's not so much about your heart rates and your Ks and your kilos. It's about, well, I want to know that, and I want to know, how did you sleep last night? How's your energy this morning? How's your appetite? And how's your mood? That's really, really key, because inflammation that gets created from exercise can throw mood out of balance.
Interesting. Yeah. And if we do this, if we have, you know, excessive training, like you said, is also a stress on the body, and this and other stresses will not allow us to go into that parasympathetic system that you mentioned earlier. And we need to remember that the parasympathetic system promotes the secretion of our digestive enzymes and the gut motility and all of that. So we're really not doing ourselves any favors if we're overtraining, right? You probably won't see the result in terms of muscle growth, but also it's going to impact the systemic health of the whole system. So yeah, balance. I'm hearing balance from your side all the time, and being in tune with your own body to be able to optimize your own health, but also, you know, your athletic capabilities and what you can achieve in your sport, right?
Yeah, you have to start as number one. I am a human being with human needs. I need the protein, but I also need the carbs, fats, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients. I need love and attention. I need empathetic support. I need others in my life. I need sleep. I need recuperative input. I need mental, emotional, spiritual health. And when you've got all of that, you have health. When you try and, you know, in modern era, we have very much reductionist science. Okay, protein equals muscle. No, it's one aspect. Even in very good science, you can't quite isolate just protein and just muscle. There's so many other life factors that go on. So yeah, but we want to, and it's a strange phenomenon that we have as human beings. But we need to now actually start embracing our wholeness and expand out to who am I? What are my needs? And how do I age gracefully with good muscular support?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, I think it's really helpful in terms of clarifying some concepts around, you know, how we can build muscle while taking care of the whole system, and not just our body, but like you said, our environment, our relationships. All of these things do play a role in the end. So is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with? Or I find that was quite a good summary just now. Is there anything else that you want to add, or is that good?
No, I think we've had a good chat.
Wonderful.
It's here in Scotland, we call it a blether. So we had a good blether, and I think we've sorted out that issue.
Lovely. Okay, thank you very much, Ian, and thank you for listening.